A single patient encounter generates a massive volume of raw, often chaotic clinical documentation. The medical record is a dense narrative of complaints, observations, and test results. Our objective is capturing that reality and imposing rigid structure onto it. The medical coder acts as the vital filter in this environment. You analyze the raw clinical narrative and translate it into a standardized, universally understood set of alphanumeric codes. Every decision you make requires balancing two competing forces: data economy, which keeps the record clean and concise, and data fidelity, which ensures the record remains an accurate reflection of the patient's actual condition. This tension peaks during symptom coding. When a physician documents a primary condition alongside multiple distinct signs and symptoms, you face an immediate decision point. Should you report every single symptom the physician wrote down on the page? Blindly converting every documented symptom into a code creates a bloated record that obscures the primary diagnosis with redundant data noise. To prevent this data corruption, you must apply the strict logic gates established in the ICD-10-CM guidelines. These strict rules dictate exactly which symptoms survive the filtering process and make it to the final claim. The definitive rule for managing unexpected clinical presentations is ICD-10-CM guideline B.6. The mandate of B.6 is precise. If a condition or symptom is not an integral part of a disease process, it must be coded separately. This operates in direct contrast to integral symptoms, which are assumed to be part of the core disease and remain uncoded. This rule functions as a critical mechanism for preserving the high-fidelity clinical picture. When a patient's presentation deviates from the textbook expectation, the code set must expand to capture that specific reality. Mastering this guideline ensures that any additional clinical significance is accurately mapped into the patient's data, which directly supports appropriate reimbursement for the actual resources used. To see exactly how this filtering logic works, we can map it. At the center of our clinical universe is the primary diagnosis. Under guideline B.5, we establish a baseline. We often see orbiting signs and symptoms that are routinely expected with this primary condition. Because these routine symptoms are naturally assumed to be part of the disease process, the system absorbs them. Coding these integral symptoms separately would generate redundant data, cluttering the record with information the system already knows. For integral symptoms, reporting the single central diagnosis code tells the complete story of the encounter. Guideline B.5 operates as a data compressor. It eliminates the redundancy by swallowing all expected symptoms into the primary code. We must apply a different logic when a patient presents with a sign or symptom that is entirely unassociated with the primary disease. Under B.6, a symptom that is not typically expected represents a separate clinical issue. It cannot be absorbed by the core disease. Because the central diagnosis rejects it, your mandate as a coder is clear. This unexpected symptom must be coded separately. Generating this multi-code output is the precise mechanism required to map a complex, atypical patient presentation. A routine presentation results in a single, dense data node. A complex presentation creates a wider, multi-node network. Guideline B.6 forces the system to expand. Capturing independent data points proves the patient's condition required more resources and monitoring than baseline expectations. This structural expansion cannot happen based on a coder's intuition. There is a strict operational constraint. You may only report a non-integral symptom if its presence is explicitly written in the medical record by the physician. You cannot infer a symptom based on outside clinical knowledge or lab values. The physician's explicit documentation serves as the trigger required to activate Guideline B.6. Without rock-solid documentation, the non-integral symptom does not exist in the eyes of the coding system, regardless of the physical reality of the patient. Let's compare two different coding pipelines to see the downstream impact of applying this logic correctly. Pipeline B successfully applies B.6. It provides a complete clinical picture, reflects the true severity of the visit, and ensures accurate reimbursement for the specific resources the facility consumed. Many professionals sabotage this process by falling into a common trap, assuming all documented symptoms are automatically integral to the disease process. Ignoring documented additional symptoms or failing to distinguish between routine and non-routine presentations corrupts the final output. The result is an incomplete record. You lose vital clinical nuance, and you artificially depress the facility's reimbursement. Treating every symptom as routine ignores clinical reality and results in a failure to protect the facility's revenue and the patient's true history. To navigate efficiently, we use a decision matrix known as the AMCI MJ-GEM. It starts with one question: is the symptom expected? If expected with the primary diagnosis, stop. Do not code it. If it's an unexpected surprise, it must be reported. We crystallize this logic into a single, repeatable rule: unexpected equals reported. This binary heuristic cuts through the noise of chaotic documentation, ensuring you apply Guideline IB6 flawlessly on every chart. Guideline IB6 acts as a safeguard. It prevents us from flattening a complex human patient into an oversimplified, one-dimensional data point. Capturing the full story requires constant vigilance. You must question the clinical expectation for every single symptom the physician documents. A truthful, high-fidelity map of the patient's physiological state is the primary product of professional coding, moving far beyond the goal of audit avoidance. Commit the rule to memory: unexpected equals reported. Demand explicit documentation, and never let vital clinical details get absorbed by assumption. By rigorously separating the routine from the unexpected, you construct the most complete, accurate, and valuable clinical picture possible.